We're here today again at Superchain Space, this time with a DCBuilder from Worldcoin. First time I'm ever meeting him, so it's nice meeting you, man. It's nice to meet you. I do want the Superchain to know a little bit more, so I think your backstory is really interesting, so I'd like to just jump right in there. Young guy, 23, he's younger than me. He's super smart as well. So tell me a little bit about DCBuilder himself and where he's from and what drives him.
So I'm a research engineer at the Worldcoin Foundation. Where I come from, I joined the space in early 2018, where I was interested in different things around learning how finance works, and just from that, since I was interested in tech, finance and tech, the only thing that sort of was at the intersection was crypto. And I eventually got nerd-sniped by cryptography and scalability and the entire problem space of how do you make these solutions better. And in the beginning, I was a researcher and writer at one company called Morales. And eventually I joined another company called Alongside, where I was working on research for this decentralized indexing platform. I was doing some initial research on secure multi-party computation and threshold signatures and some other things. And then eventually I joined Worldcoin in July of 2022. And that's where I'm still now. I joined TFH, Tools for Humanity, the labs entity, and I switched over to the foundation in February.
Worldcoin committed to the Superchain in, I think, 21, one of the earliest committers. Recently launched Worldchain. Let's go right into there. What is Worldchain going to be?
So one small correction, we haven't launched Worldchain, but we announced Worldchain.
Exactly.
Worldchain was going to be is an OP stack L2, part of the Superchain. So same as all the other Superchain chains. One small difference compared to maybe Optimism mainnet is just a higher gas limit, similar to Base. And what it's supposed to be for is that currently Worldcoin, or the World app, which is the application built by Worldcoin, which is a front end to the wallet and also to World ID, essentially consumes about 50% of Optimism mainnet block space. And this essentially is a big bottleneck and constraint towards how much we can grow. And if we want to grow to support more users and more use cases, we need to have more block space, hence Worldchain. And so we want to push the boundaries of the scaling roadmap. We've contributed to the scaling roadmap by, for example, building the 4844 KZG ceremony server, a bunch of other things that we'll be contributing in the scalability roadmap. And now we want to also push that forward together by contributing to the OP stack and the OP ecosystem. And so what Worldchain essentially is meant to be is to be this pristine environment for the World app so that we can scale further, and also to become an ecosystem place for digital identity and use cases that want to target World app users as well.
I want to jump a little deeper into that World app, World ID part. I feel like you guys got a bad rep, especially I will say in the crypto Twitter space. You guys are always looked up, I would say frowned upon, because you're scanning, and correct me if I'm wrong, retinas or irises. Yes. So explain to us why we are even me, I had to research into Worldcoin and get a better understanding of why you guys are actually quite necessary in a way of, for example, Sybil resistance. So dive a little deeper into that for me.
So I guess I'll sort of explain a bit of my journey joining Worldcoin and how I got convinced per se. So I think people tend to sort of generalize their understanding of this problem matter because of movies they've watched or because of the culture around the biometrics. We've always seen a lot of movies, and we have examples of autocratic environments where they have countries like China, etc.
I never thought about the movies aspect from it, but now that I'm looking at it, there's a lot of movies where
I mean, there's nothing negative or bad about biometrics.
No.
We're used to using biometrical forms for different things, but some of them have negative connotations because of the culture we've created around them, right? So if you create a negative perspective from since you're born by every piece of content you consume, at least that's good, right? You're wary. At least people have an innate resistance towards it, which is great because you can use that same technology to do really bad things. The difference between the extreme 1984 scenario and let's say Worldcoin would be the privacy focus, right? We've put a lot of effort towards preserving users' privacy. Maybe recently, for example, to put one thing into perspective, is that the thing that we use to sort of measure uniqueness is this thing called an iris code. An iris code is a unique representation of the randomness of a given person's iris. It's not a biometric in and of itself. The biometric never leaves the orb itself. You only take the image, it computes the iris code, original biometric is deleted within the orb, and the only thing that leaves the orb is this thing called an iris code, which just encodes the randomness of the iris. And then you use that to measure like your uniqueness against all the other iris codes of people who have signed up to date. And that's how you're able to measure whether someone is unique or not.
And what if someone isn't unique?
Well, if they sign up again, they're going to have an iris code that is going to get compared against all the other iris codes, and you're going to have a collision. And if you have a collision, you say like, hey, this person has already been signed up before, so you don't include their public key into the set of verified users.
Yes, to consistently keep updating this.
Yeah, consistently keep like updating it by registering new people. If someone wants to get deleted from the tree, they can also get deleted from the tree. If someone wants to reset their world ID, they can just delete themselves from the set and reinsert themselves into the set. So there's all sorts of like variations of how you can interact with it.
Worldchain launching, World ID, World App will probably be the biggest consumer bigger on there, but I assume there's also going to be a bunch of applications that are going to be built on there, specifically from Worldcoin or maybe other projects. What are you looking for other projects to come when they want to deploy on Worldchain? What would you recommend to them?
So currently, I would say like in the near term, the biggest priority is going to be just World App, right? Like we need to migrate everything over, like all the 4+ million safes for every single user that is orb verified past beta, because pre-beta we didn't deploy safes for users. So yeah, there's mostly that in the beginning. Things that I'm excited about in terms of use cases is mostly digital identity use cases. So I don't know how much like people have been keeping up with stuff, but in the ZK space in general, or in the attestations identity space, there's been a lot of new emerging protocols and applications. So things like storage proof based things like Axiom, Herodotus, Lagrange. There's things like proof of passport. You can make a zero-knowledge proof about information that was signed by a passport issuing authority. So you can make a proof about your age or your nationality or where you come from, whatever. You can, without revealing anything else. It's selective disclosure, right? I can prove that I'm over 18. I can prove, for example, TLS activity. So over a website, I can prove that I've done more than 100 rides on Uber, so I can get a discount or promotion or whatever. There's all sorts of these like targeted selective disclosure attestations that you can make based off of different data and signatures.
Sounds also quite like, I wouldn't like not socialistic, but like, a social app in a way, because you give that example of Uber, if
I mean, it's identity.
Exactly.
All we have from applications is identity based, but currently our identity is very centralized in most existing scenarios. The only way that we can prove to Google that we are good customers is because like we pay for Uber, like YouTube Premium, because we pay for this, we watch this, so they have metrics about us, so they can serve us specific content or for example, market specific things. Right, that's how you know that a person is something or has something, because you have the data to back it up. But right now we cannot export that data or have like a decentralized way, and also it's not custodied by us. So ideally, everyone would build systems that are self-custodial and selective disclosure based and cryptography based, right?
Or to pull back a little here, like the OP Superchain is growing to about currently 18 OP chains have committed to it. Only a couple are really contributing to the Optimism Collective. Worldchain, Worldcoin is already, Worldcoin is doing it, Worldchain will do that. Who are you, if you had the option, we made you CEO for the day of Worldcoin or Worldchain, who would you want to work with from the OP chain besides Optimism specifically? You could pick any of the current 18 OP chains. Maybe it's even another chain that isn't an L2 that you want to come on board.
So I guess this is not necessarily like a Worldcoin opinion, but more of my personal opinion.
Yes.
I really like what Base is doing. Like I think like they're the biggest driver of OP chain, like OP stack or anything adoption outside of OP Labs or Foundation. So I really love Base like for their customer focus, or just like for their user focused. Like it's something we're missing in Web3, right? Like driving all of your use cases and all of your infrastructure from the user perspective, as opposed to just building infrastructure that no one is using.
No, they've done a great job with On-Chain Summer. That whole campaign they've built around it, bringing everything on-chain. I've for like example, this is going to be on-chain on Zora. It's going to be minted on Farcast. We're going to do everything we can, especially in this space. Whatever we do is trying to go mostly on chain, and I think Base is a huge proponent of that, just the motivation and the effort they put in. So I can see what you guys, but maybe just a little bit specific, could you think of maybe something you, Worldcoin ID and Worldchain and Base would do?
I mean, there's a bunch of products that are like on both sides, right? There's things like NFT platforms like Zora, or like Base has their own thing. There's things like Base ID, or I think it's called Coinbase ID or something like that, where you like issue like namespaces, so like simple thing like SIB resistant namespaces if you want, or verified namespaces, or when it comes to like, I don't know, like Friendtag or any of these applications, like all of those can use World ID. The issue there is that the user base doesn't overlap too much, right? So when you have a Venn diagram of like World ID verified users and like any user of any dApp out there, the intersection is quite small, therefore it's not worthwhile for most developers to target that intersection. So I guess the goal for us would be to grow that pie and also to expose other things besides orb verification, like other identity primitives, like whether it's passport, email, whatever, all these sorts of like other ways, and using zero knowledge cryptography and selective disclosure, right? You would be able to just onboard more users to World ID, and therefore it would be more of a user-based overlap, and people can use different attestations to make like targeting for SIB resistance or identity.
Final thing, I'll have to let you go, even though I'd love to pick your brain for a couple more hours. But let's say we're now 2 years into the future, it's 2020, let's say 2027, right? Worldchain is live. We've migrated Worldcoin from OP mainnet. You guys have scaled largely. Even more apps have come besides just Worldcoin app. RPGF has passed. What do you want to see Worldcoin and the Superchain be in the next, like, let's say 2027? And what do you hope to see?
So for me, it would be, I mean, on the infrastructure side, you just need to support 100 million billion users. That's like an extremely challenging thing. And honestly, I would just like to see an abstraction that is friendly enough towards the user that we can replace every single Web2 application with Web3, right? Like become the true value layer of the internet, not just the value layer for crypto natives. And for that, you need to do a lot of like on-chain abstraction thingies, whether it's that like interoperability stuff, right? Like, so like you have the OP interop spec that has been built with a bunch of like core members of the OP stack. There's like all sorts of abstractions and things. And like I want to see true mass adoption, right? Like it's the recurring thing, but like Worldcoin is all about onboarding billion users. Same with Coinbase, same with a bunch of other people. Yeah.
DCBuilder, thank you for coming on to this podcast with Worldchain, you know, already being a part of Superchain, Worldcoin already being there. I'd like to officially introduce you to the Superchain merch. I'd like to hand you your official Superchain merch. I hope you like it. Guys, this was our podcast with DCBuilder. I hope you enjoyed it. Catch him on his Twitter, social media. He's going to be giving a lot of talks throughout the week, so you'll see him everywhere. Thanks, man.
Thank you. Take care. See you guys.
Yep.